am Jarrett, and I'm a creative director at Scout Expedition Company.
My name is Jeff, and I'm also a creative director at Scout Expedition Company.
The Nest is the story of a woman named Josie who has just passed away, and she has this storage room that you have the opportunity to go through, and it's filled with decades of her memories from when she was a young girl up until right before she died in her older age. So as you go through this storage room, you're able to discover kind of what her life was just by finding objects along the way that she has kind of collected throughout her life, as well as a series of audio cassette tapes that she has taken because she was a journalist. So she recorded all of these kind of milestone events throughout her life.
It's about a 45 or 50-minute experience. It's super intimate, super small. There's some light puzzle solving. We were super inspired by video games like Gone Home and Firewatch and like What Remains of Edith Finch. It's a mix of escape room with immersive theater, and it's a little bit creepy, but not quite like a traditional haunt. So over the entire 4-month run of The Nest, we had about 270 shows altogether.
There really was no perfect way to go through the experience. There's no winning scenario. Some people are, very active going through the space. Some people are a little bit, it is kind of a scary environment, so they're a little bit more held back and they explore a little bit more slowly. They're a little more timid. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but it was just an interesting design challenge since there's no actors in the space to kind of reshape what's happening with the narrative.
So if you're the type of person who's very hands-off and just kind of wants to peer around the space and every now and then sort of dig into the details, that's totally fine. That's awesome. Or if you're the person who really wants to rifle through things, it might make a bit of a mess for us to reset, but that's besides the point. It's some people are like that, and that's totally cool too. That just is a different type of experience. Both Jared and I work in the themed entertainment, theme park industry by day, and this is sort of, immersive theater has always been sort of a passion of ours. We both saw Sleep No More, and that was sort of our gateway show, I guess you would say, into this whole scene. We had already been sort of working on some set design related things and some events at work that were sort of immersive theater-y. I worked with the Delusion team for the 2016 and 14 shows, doing set dressing and prop design. So we've also worked with Third Rail, and then it all culminated in us sort of deciding, we need to just sort of do our own thing. So we knew we wanted to work with a small space, and so we started brainstorming ideas for what would a tiny little space be, and we kept circling back to this idea of a storage room.
The nice thing about this show is it's a fairly light show to operate. All of our actors are voice actors that you hear on the tapes as you go through. So really on the night of the show itself, there's just the two of us. And one of the first things we do is go through a little tutorial of how to use a tape player. Most people are generally familiar with how to use it. The one we have is kind of quirky, so I think the experience would be not nearly as interesting with perfect crystal clear audio.
Yeah, so another part of that subtle magic in the show that we have is our one piece of real tech, I guess, sort of came about in a funny way. So originally with the show, we wanted to have it take place in a real storage unit, or at least that's what we had been kicking around for a while. Right. And that in retrospect seems sort of impractical, but it forced us to make this decision about how are people going to navigate a space that basically has no power? Aspirationally, to go through a storage unit with a flickering flashlight is awesome. So we retained that, and we decided, but wouldn't it be cool if you could control it somehow and make it flicker out at opportune moments, sort of almost cinematically? And that's how we began to develop with a friend of ours who helped us out. So we can trigger the flickers and the flashlight light levels. Kind of step it down as you go throughout the experience, like it's running out of battery.
Right, and if you're reaching for something, into a scary little opening that you don't know what it is, we'll cut the flashlight, or we can also use it almost in an operational way. If you're looking somewhere and might discover a secret that we want you to find later, we might just cut the power on the flashlight so that, we'll save that reveal until it's the right time.
I think the kind of nicest things we would see during the run was kind of some of the intergenerational groups.
A lot of people just were very touched by the story, whether it was because they connected with Josie in some way.
You know, one that sticks out in my mind specifically was this couple who was, you know, this like middle-aged couple that lived down in Orange County, came up to see the show, a wife and a husband, and the wife was very into immersive theater and had seen all of these different shows, and her husband really hadn't seen anything before. He definitely was like kind of like a conservative, like military guy.
He would be holding the flashlight and kind of just standing there with his arms crossed, sort of lighting the way for her, and she would be digging through all the props and,
like,
getting really into it.
He must hate this thing.
Yeah.
And then when they like came out and we talked a little bit afterward, and then suddenly he's like, it reminded me of my childhood and like when I used to build forts like under my mom's kitchen table, and he was like going on this whole story about you know, bringing memories back from his childhood, totally unexpected coming from this very reserved guy, of just, you could see the little like flashback happen. So we've been thinking of a lot of different places we could go after this show. I think we really wanted to use the Nest as almost a proving ground. Now that the Nest has, you know, finished and you know, it definitely exceeded any of our expectations. We definitely want to take this experience and move on to something larger. We don't know what that is yet because it took us probably 3 years to develop this show. Again, a lot of that time is just very slowly, you know, the idea simmering in your head and changing a million times.
I mean, I think for anybody who's looking to create their first immersive experience, the major thing that Jared and I always are talking about, you need to take any constraints that you have in a project or anything that you're not sure about and try to leverage them into something positive. I think that especially with immersive theater, you're going to come across obstacles with space. So you might not find that perfect giant warehouse that would hold a huge epic show, but that doesn't matter, and almost you shouldn't worry about that. So try to do a show. What does it mean to do an immersive piece on a sidewalk or at a bar table or in a telephone booth if you can find one in LA? I think if you're confident in what you're good at, it'll sort of elevate all of your other skills at the same time.
It's never the perfect time to make an immersive experience. You always are going to have work, you always are going to have your personal life, but really if you just start, you get the ball rolling, it'll just, you know, snowball bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until like it's going on its own and you're learning and you're going. But the hardest thing by far is taking the first step. Sounds very poetic, I suppose.
But it's true.
It's totally true. It's like now it's time to scratch that itch again of getting back into the early design process and creating something totally different.
Mm-hmm.